Small deeds can reap great rewards. Maybe it seems a little bit far fetched or too extreme. How do small deeds give us rewards? Our sages teach us that this is definitely something that happens, something that is a possibility for even small actions that we do. I remember when I was in elementary school, I believe it was fifth grade, and I remember one of my teachers being so incredibly happy to teach. And I told myself, I love this class. I love this teacher. Now, as teachers, we really want our students to remember maybe the content of our subjects, what we teach to our students. But really, it's just so much more than that. People admire others and want to be like them and have a good impression of people by their memories, by their lasting impressions. And I remember my teacher always being happy to teach, always being, full of energy and happy to see us as her students. And I remember it was literacy class, and I just enjoyed it. I till this day I have a love for literacy, and I don't think it was because of this teacher. I think it definitely had a positive impact on me, and people do affect us, even in a small way. Now, as an adult, I look years back that I still have a love for literacy, and I still remember the teacher. I had many teachers in the past, as I'm sure you did if you finished school. But the lasting impressions, I remember certain teachers, and I know I'm not alone. There are many people who have good impressions of people, of teachers that they've had in the past because of the lasting impressions that they make. And we may think it's insignificant. Okay, so they're going to grow up to be adults, these students. No, we never know how we can affect someone, and we never know by the smallest thing how we can affect someone. And I want to share with you a story that happened during the time of the Holocaust. This is a true story retold by the Belujever Rebbe. And he talks about how a relatively small good deed that someone did was repaid with immense reward. There was a Jewish family by the last name of Hiller, and they lived in the Krakow ghetto in 1942. There was a husband and wife and their 6-year-old son. Their 6-year-old son um, was very, very dear to them. He was their only one. And his name was Shachni. Survival rates in the ghetto were extremely, extremely low. People were deported to Auschwitz almost on a daily basis to the concentration camps. Only those capable of working for the German war effort had any hope of survival. And a little boy for sure didn't stand a chance. So as time passed by, the situation grew worse, and the Hiller family knew of a family who was very close to them, their good Polish friends who did not have children, who really wanted children, and the Hiller family felt that they could trust them, and their last name was Jacobitz. So the Jacobitz family were the family that they had in mind in order to bring Shachni to them so they could entrust them in their care. On the night of November 15th, 1942, Mrs. Hiller and her little son escaped the ghetto, knowing that they could be shot upon sight if they were caught. They escaped in the middle of the night and running with their hearts pounding through the streets until they finally reached the Jacobitz family. Mrs. Hiller told her Polish friend, and I quote, "Who knows if my husband and I will survive this horrible war? If my husband and I will survive, or even one of us, we will come back for our precious Shachni. But if we do not survive, heaven forbid, I am relying on you to deliver him to one of our relatives." she took out two envelopes from her pocket, and there was writing on each of the envelopes, which looked like the ink was smudged from falling tears. And I quote again, she says to her Polish friend, "Here are two letters. One is to our relatives in Montreal in Canada. The other is to our relatives in Washington. Either one of them will take him and raise him as a Jew. Even if we die, at least Shachni will carry on as a Jew. I am relying on you, my dear friend, to see this through. God bless you, my friend." Unfortunately, the Hillers' trust in the Jacobus family was really misplaced. The Hillers died in the Holocaust. They perished. They had not left their son in good hands. Mrs. Jacobitz dearly loved Shachni, and Shachni really loved Mrs. Jacobitz. They grew very close. She took him to Mass regularly and taught him all of the Catholic hymns and prayers. Within a few years, he became just like a Christian child. In 1946, when it became clear that Shachni's parents had passed away, they weren't returning. It was 1946, and the war was over. Mrs. Jacobitz approached a young parish priest to discuss having the boy baptized as a Christian. The priest, seeing the boy is already 10 years old, asked Mrs. Jacobitz, "Why wasn't he baptized yet? He's 10 years old." Mrs. Jacobitz tried to avoid his persistent questions, but he kept on asking and trying to clarify why wasn't he baptized yet. And then she finally told him all the details of the story. Mrs. Jacobus relented, but she told him the full story, and the young priest urged Mrs. Jacobitz, "Please, you must honor his parents' wishes. You must fulfill their promise and honor their wishes for their only son." Mrs. Jacobitz just felt so guilty, and she just really relented, but she decided to send the letters um, to the boy's relatives in America. In June 1949, through the efforts of the Canadian Jewish Congress, 14 Jewish orphans from Poland, Shachni was among them, were allowed into Canada. In February 1951, by a special act of Congress, signed by President Truman, Shachni was allowed to the United States, and he went on to live with his family in Washington. He became a successful businessman, very successful in the business world, rising to become a top vice president in a very important corporation. Throughout the years, he became in close contact with Mrs. Jacobitz, sending her money, gifts, phone calls, letters, and he kept in touch with her. Finally, in 1978, Mrs. Jacobitz felt very guilty that she had to clear her conscience and tell Shachni about his close call in becoming a baptized person and becoming a Christian. She almost baptized him, and she told him everything. She wrote about the parish priest who had urged her to do the right thing. His name was Karol Wojtyla, better known to the world as Pope John II. The Blujever Rebbe observed, and I quote, as he's telling the story, "Who can know why Hashem does what he does? But it seems reasonable to see that for one word of good advice, the young priest gave this Polish woman, he was rewarded with the greatest reward possible for a priest. He became the Pope." End quote. He became the Pope, which was the highest thing a priest could become. And now he's known to the world as Pope John Paul II. we don't know the value of our smallest deeds. As a young priest, he could probably say to himself, okay, he's just another boy. There are so many boys. Why do I have to care about this one? Plus, I'm a young priest. Why would I want to make a mistake? Why do I want to get into some drama? Why did he say that? He said, you know what? I'm going to do the right thing. He felt bad. My assumption is he felt bad. This wasn't the right thing. She confided in him. She told him the truth. And he knows that he's trying to lead a community of people to do the right thing. And he told her, honor the words. This boy would have probably benefited joining the Christian world. But yet, he didn't see him as only a boy. He said, let me just persuade her. Let me just tell her, follow the words of the parents. Please honor their words. And she listened, and she listened. And because she listened to his caring words, then this boy continued his Jewish roots and he became an observant Jewish person. And this really gets us to think. Sometimes we may not think that our smallest deed is significant, but it is. It can change someone's life. It can change someone's day, especially nowadays when we're just socially distant from other people, when we don't have get-togethers. People feel awkward just, being around people. A smile, a good word, a compliment, a thank you note can change someone's day, can change someone's day dramatically. Excuse me. Um, so we want to understand, we want to internalize that no small deed is overlooked. It could change someone's day, it could change someone's life, it could change yourself. And of course, nothing gets overlooked by Hashem, who sees everything, who rewards us for everything that we do. Of course, in the contrary, everything negative that we do, we also it also affects us, affects the world, and we do need to consider that. We do need to account for that. So we have to understand that everything, everything that we do is important. And great people become great not because they're recognized that they're great, not because they're complimented, not because their parents are great and their genes are great. No. Great people become great by doing small things in a great way. So, Rabbi Victor Miller of blessed memory gave amazing advice on how to be a greater person. He said, once a day, do something that nobody sees. Do the right thing and don't talk about it. Don't let anybody know. So once a day we can do something to become greater people, and rest assured you will be rewarded. It could be a phone call to someone just to say hello. It's a simple thing. It's a small act of kindness. Or looking at our children in the eyes when they speak. Yes, we're busy. Or our students. But just looking at them, that shows they care. That shows that they're cared for, that they belong somewhere, that they're thought about, that they're important. And we all want to feel important, so much more so nowadays where we live in a fast-paced world. We want to let our children know, our students know, people know that we value them and they're important and they're noticed. It's a small thing, but it speaks volumes to other people. And when you do things that nobody sees, it really changes everything. Remember, it could be anything. You could be in the store, just put a few things back that you didn't put out of place in the store. Nobody has to see it. Nobody has to know you or know about it. Write an anonymous thank you note. Call someone just to say hello. How are they feeling? How are they doing? Don't ask them if you could borrow some onions or a cup of milk. No other intentions except just a simple hello. How are you? It reminds me of someone, an elderly person that I know, who calls me for the smallest thing and remembers to say thank you. And it's so nice to see that, because we don't live in a generation where we have to make an effort to thank, but yet it really meant a lot to me. I'm like, wow, it's not overlooked, even the smallest thing that I do. It's so nice to hear. So when we recognize the small things that other people do, we could a practical tip is to thank someone even for the smallest thing that they do, and also once a day do something that nobody sees and nobody has to know about. Maybe it's not honking at someone who should go on green, just not honking, just waiting for them. Maybe they're having a stressful day. Maybe they're not feeling well in the car. We don't know. But we don't have to know everything. Well, we have to know that the smallest thing that we do affects us, the universe, it affects other people, for sure. So when you do a good thing, when you do a thing, even the smallest thing, three things can happen. Number one, you will feel good about doing it. Remember, things that feel good are necessarily good, good to us. So things that, meaning like you could have a lot of ice cream. It looks good, it's delicious, but is it good? It's not, right? But something good that you're doing may feel uncomfortable in the beginning, calling someone just to say hello or making that effort to do a good deed. It may not feel good, you're going out of your way, but it is good. So number one, you're going to feel good about it in the end. Number two, remember, you are an example, especially as a Jewish person. We are examples to the world. This is the way we are observed by society. People see us. We need to be an example. And this is a Kiddush Hashem. We are elevating Hashem's name. We're trying to behave in the way that He wants us to be. So remember, you affect people just by being an example. And number three, you will get rewarded even for the smallest insignificant act that you do. So may we remember our value, may we remember our power, and remember that nothing is overlooked by the master of the world. Leah Abramov, Being and Becoming, awakening awareness of your greatness and potential.